Welcome to Demystify Magic with Molly and Madison.
I'm Molly, a former skeptic turned full-time energy healer and teacher.
And I'm Madison, a born and raised witch running my family's crystal shop.
And we're here to explore all things woo through the lens of both science and spirituality so that you can find the moments of magic in your everyday life and create an intentional spiritual practice.
So if that's what you're into, find a cozy spot, take a deep breath, and let's demystify some magic. Howdy doody, friends.
Howdy. And a duty.
Guys, we're going to have a moment of vulnerable truth here. And we're going to tell you that the vibes are rancid.
Oh, the vibes.
They're rotting off the bone.
Oh, this is going to make us feel so much better, isn't it?
It is. And I feel like that's fitting for the topic of this week's episode because we are going to talk about something that, to me personally, also has rancid vibes.
We're just matching the mood.
Yeah.
Really.
We're just matching the energy. We're just really trying to give you, oh, there's a butterfly out my window.
And the moods have flip-flopped.
That made me feel better. That decreased the rancidness of the vibes. But we are...
Now the vibes are just a little mildewy.
Yeah.
Mildew?
Mildew.
Mildew. Or mildew.
To mildew or not to mildew.
This is an intro.
It certainly is introing something. We are talking about eclipse season.
We are.
Because at the time of your listening to this, we are about to be in the thick of it. The eclipse season is eclipsing upon us. We have a partial lunar eclipse coming up either on September 17th or September 18th, depending on what time zone you're in. For us on the East Coast, it'll be September 17th. And then followed by a solar eclipse on October 2nd.
Woof.
We were talking about this earlier because we were like, oh, we should talk about like our experience with the last eclipse that was in March of this year, March and April. And I really think like, you know how people describe when they have babies? They're like, oh, your body forgets how horrible birth is, so you'll want to do it again. That's how I feel about the eclipse. I'm like, I remember it was bad. I didn't feel good, but I can't remember what was so bad about it.
Not a single memory. You know what's so funny is in like at the end of last eclipse season, we wrote this idea down. We're like, yeah, we should record now what our eclipse experience was like so that we can remember next time. And then we're like, no, we'll remember.
We'll remember. What if we do at the end of this eclipse season? What if we do an eclipse review?
Eclipse review. Okay, if you want to see that, let us know.
Yeah, if you enjoyed this mess. If you enjoy these rancid vibes, tell us if you want more of them. All right, but before we get started, as I've already launched us into it, what was your magic moment this week, Molly?
Okay, I have a very silly magic moment. I don't know if it's silly or not. I'm excited about it.
I'm excited if you're excited.
I had a dream specifically involving, you know, those eyeliner stamps that make the perfect wing?
Mm-hmm.
Haven't seen those like in stores ever. I think I've probably seen like one review of them. Had a dream about them. I was just like, oh, that's interesting. And then I had to go to Marshall's, naturally, or TJ Maxx, one of those. They're all the same to me. And I was like, oh, let's check the makeup aisle. Maybe it'll be there. And the stamp eyeliner was there. And I was like, well.
Does it work?
It does.
Really?
You want to see?
Yeah.
I can show you.
Do it right now. Live on camera.
I'm going to do it right now. All right. You ready?
Yeah. Show it to me. Yeah. Get up close and personal.
Looks like this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
Wow.
I know. Let me do the other side.
This podcast is not sponsored by Little Stamps. Wow. Pretty good. Pretty good. Good enough for government work.
Good enough for government work. That's what I always say. And I've been having some fun with it, so.
You manifested
Anyways,
it. You dreamed it into
dreams do come true.
So true.
What was your magic moment?
I am going to be a little bit more tender. Sorry. I've just been, I think this is kind of also a part of eclipse season for me, is that I just feel so emotionally fragile. Mm-hmm. Where like everything is something to cry about. I am crying over spilt milk, you know?
Sure.
And I now live like 45 minutes away from my mom. Oh, she's finishing the eyeliner.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I can't. I'm fucking it up.
I've never seen someone so disinterested in me. She said, "Oh, serious moment? Let me pull up my mirror and fix my eyeliner that I just stamped on."
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. You know I won't be able to focus till we do it.
I know. Thank God.
The wings are on, and she's back.
She's back. Growing up, I never thought I was a person who would really care that much about living close to my family. I went to school 4 hours away from home and then promptly moved to New York, lived in the Midwest for a little while, and then 2 years ago moved back to Florida. And for the last 2 years, I've lived 5 minutes from my mom's house. And we both, we live close together, we work together. I spend a lot of time with my mom. And with the opening of Spellcrafter and moving to St. Pete, that's 45 minutes to an hour away, and she's moving a little bit further north. I just have this very new appreciation for her. We've had some space, and now I see her twice a week, which is still so much more than most people see their moms, right? But I see her on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and on Tuesday, I'm I missed you over the weekend. And we're just able to talk in a very different way. When you see somebody all the time, it's almost like you're always talking, but also you're never talking about stuff.
Yeah.
Because there's always more time. And I've really just over the last few weeks had this new appreciation for her, especially as she started a podcast about local Tarpon Springs politics, as we've discussed in the third episode. I just see so much of who I am in who she is. And Mom, you listen to this podcast. I love you. And I'm so grateful that you're my mom. And I'm really proud of who you are as a person. And I'm so glad, I claim you with such a severe energy. I'm that's my mom. You know that video of Gus Walls at the DNC? That is me.
No, I don't.
You didn't see it? It was very tender. Kamala Harris's VP pick, Tim Walz, his son, was at the DNC screaming, "That's my dad!"
Oh, yeah.
That's
cute.
me. That's me to Christy, always. Okay. And
that's
was my
also me
moment.
to Christy. I claim you too, Christy.
That's our collective mom.
That is the mom of Demystify Magic.
Somebody sent us a message once and sent us this really nice thing about you, you and I, and then said, "And also your mom too. She is mother." And I sent it to her and I said, "You are mother."
She is. Fun fact, this podcast would not exist without Christy. So
wholeheartedly would not exist without Christy. No one has ever believed in us the way my fucking mother does. It's Crazy Town, USA. I know everybody thinks that their kids can do everything, and I believe that is true. My mom has the fucking follow through on that. She's I believe that you can do anything, and I'm gonna force you to do it.
I remember before we even launched the podcast, she's all right, we need to trademark Demystify Magic.
She was
we need to start getting merch.
She's you buy that domain name now. I was yes, ma'am. $2.99 a year. You got it.
Oy vey.
All right. Now that we've had something to slightly de-rancify the rancid vibes.
De-rancify magic.
De-rancify Eclipse season. That's
episode
title.
Episode title.
Okay. I'm going to be very vulnerable with you in this moment, Molly, and tell you that I had to Google just now. You actually watched me Google it, so I'm being vulnerable with all of you listening and telling you that we just had a 5-minute interlude about what is the difference between a solar eclipse and a lunar eclipse. There are some things that I just accept are true.
Yeah, I've never thought about it, to be honest with you.
Well, the difference is, according to Google, according to NASA science,
Ooh.
and I trust them.
If there's one thing I trust, it's NASA science.
During a lunar eclipse, Earth's shadow obscures the moon. During a solar eclipse, the moon blocks the sun.
Okay.
So a lunar eclipse is a shadow, whereas a solar eclipse is actually there's an obstruction.
Sure.
Great. Now that we're all on the same page.
We're on the page.
I don't really experience an energetic difference between a lunar eclipse and a solar eclipse, and I think that's just because they're so close together.
I just experience it as eclipse.
Yeah. I'm it's just the season. It's the reason for the season.
It's the season of the eclipse.
It's the season of the vibes.
Someone told me their favorite part about this podcast is when I sing. And I just want you to know, you've created a monster.
She's taken that to heart, and she's making it everybody's problem. But I feel like really for me, like the eclipse is just an energy that feels quite chaotic.
Yeah, chaotic. Twister vibes. I think of like, the scene in The Wizard of Oz when the tornado's going and the like cow and the dog and the door are all like swept up in the tornado. Energetically, that's what eclipse season feels like to me usually.
Yeah, I think like it's very similar to how like what people fearmonger Mercury retrograde to be like is what eclipse season is for me. On the whole, I don't find Mercury retrograde to be all that spooky. This last one,
rough.
She came for me. But eclipse season, I feel like, is more consistently, I notice the energetic differences. There are Mercury retrogrades that go by, and if I didn't work in a metaphysical space, I would never know that Mercury was retrograde.
Yeah.
I feel like when I go back in time, I'm like, oh yeah, that was a time that I felt unhinged. That was a time that I felt unhinged. This was a shitty situation. Like when I go and look at past retrograde, or not past retrogrades, at past eclipses. So yeah. I'm interested to hear from our listeners of like what y'all experience during the eclipse. Like, because we can't be the only ones.
I have a love-hate with eclipse season because yes, it's chaotic, but I also think it's like, okay, I'm gonna run with this tornado analogy because I see it panning out in the way that I see eclipse season panning out. Mm-hmm. So if you're familiar with The Wizard of Oz, if you're not familiar with the plot of The Wizard of Oz, I'm sorry, spoilers ahead. Spoilers ahead.
Skip 2 to 3 minutes.
But like, okay, so Dorothy lives in this black and white world. She's got the tornado. The tornado turns everything upside down. She gets jettisoned to this new place where she has to go on all these adventures. All these things go wrong. But in the end, she learns that the power is within herself and she learns the value of home, right? So it all comes together in the end. I feel like that's what eclipse season is. It kind of stirs shit up so that you find what's really important and then it anchors that important thing in your life by getting rid of everything else. So like, I sometimes don't dread eclipse season because if there's something that I feel stuck on that feels stagnant, I know it's going to get whipped up in that tornado and it's going to get solved one way or another. It might not be pretty, might not be fun, but I know at the end of eclipse season, I'll have clarity on it.
Yeah. It's like the ultimate version of the shaking the jar analogy that we've used for retrograde, where it's like things that are a little bit, stuck to the bottom of the energetic spice jar. Mm-hmm. They come out the little holes in the top.
Yeah, they sure do.
One thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take Molly's really good metaphor and I'm going to make it much worse and say it again. But what do we do?
Yeah. Well, this is your survival guide. We're gonna rapid fire a survival guide for you because if you're anything like us, you want to be prepared. You want to know, where your ruby slippers are. And you want to dump some water on the Wicked Witch of the West that is the eclipse energy so that you can make it back home to Aniem.
Okay, now I'm bringing it around and I'm bringing it home. And it's a good one because now what a perfect metaphor The Wizard of Oz has been. Because if you've seen Wicked...
I haven't. Don't spoil it.
Oh, spoilers ahead. You've listened to the soundtrack.
I have. I guess
about the Wicked Witch of the West.
I know.
She's the main character. Eclipse season... She really just has a bad PR team.
She's got a bad PR team. Yes, eclipses are powerful. Eclipses are life catalysts.
Winners write the history books. And Dorothy got to write The Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
They don't know Elphaba like we do. After we've just talked a lot of shit about eclipse season. But the clarity that it brings is wicked.
Yeah. Oh. So what you're saying is step 1 to survive eclipse season is to watch Wicked and to watch The Wizard of Oz.
Yes. That's step 1.
Follow the yellow brick road. Honestly, good advice for eclipse season. Follow the yellow brick road. Follow your intuition. Take one step forward. One step at a time.
One thing about us is we are going to make it to a metaphor that makes sense. It might take, we are following the yellow brick road. Sometimes they don't look like it, but we're going to get
because there. This episode is chaotic, I'm going to share with you a Wizard of Oz story that I don't think I have shared on the pod before.
Okay. More skipping again if you haven't, like the people who haven't seen The Wizard of Oz and really
spoiler,
care about
not
spoilers.
A spoiler.
Oh, thank God.
This is a Molly.
Okay.
This is a life altering Molly.
Stop hitting the 30-second button. Stop hitting the 30-second button. We're free.
Chaotic. This whole fucking episode.
I'm so sorry. I can't contain myself.
If this is your first time listening to us, just go listen to the Root episode. Just skip this one.
Come back later. Circle back.
Yeah, we're embodying eclipse energy here so that you know what you're in for. Anyways, when I was 16, I was in The Wizard of Oz, a local community play.
Anyways, let's get back to what matters.
I played the Wicked Witch of the West.
Of course.
And during the tornado scene, I had a very quick change, right? Because I had to go from Mrs. Gulch to all green everywhere. And I had to cross backstage, get on a vintage bike with a tiny, like 3-foot wingspan in the wings to get on that bike, get the momentum, and then cross between the stage and the front row. And I could cackle during the tornado scene. That was what was happening behind the scenes. Okay. On stage, I was Mrs. Gulch, the neighbor, the cranky neighbor. Then I ran backstage, got green, ran all the way to the other side of the theater, and crossed. Well, you see, one night I did not get enough momentum before I left the wing. And I toppled over on my vintage bike onto a small child.
I don't think you've told this on the podcast, but I did know this story. I forgot about it.
Because I am a professional actor, I stayed in character. And when the small child looked at me with his little eyes, I went, "I'll get you, my pretty." And then I kept going. And the boy burst into tears. And I didn't ride a bike again for 12 years. And that's what eclipse season is all about.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes you're the Wicked Witch falling over, and sometimes you're the small child who gets fallen on.
I just remember, every time I think about that kid, I'm like, whenever he sees grass, whenever he sees Kermit the Frog.
He can't watch Wicked.
No.
He's like, that's not the good guy. I know her. I've seen her with my own eyes, and that is not a protagonist.
Oh, well, my advice to tie that in was make sure you have enough wing space.
So true. Make sure there's enough wing space on your tiny bike.
To get the momentum, right? So don't try to rush things is the message there. Take your time in eclipse season, especially. Get your feet on the ground. Maybe genuinely, this is not a bit, genuinely revisit the root chakra episode.
Mm-hmm.
Because that is always my go-to during eclipse season is to come back to the root, come back to my feet on the floor, right? What do we do when we're spinning up in a tornado? We put our feet on the floor.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to check in during any sort of turbulent time, which is why you're going to hear us talk about it every day, every episode for the rest of eternity, probably.
If that's not our most popular episode by the end of the year,
we've got beef. Okay, but I want to walk you guys through my favorite energetic shielding tactic that I think I've touched on lightly, but I really want to walk you through it because I think it's a really powerful thing for eclipse season specifically. This is advice that I also often give through Mercury retrograde, is that there are people, when you're aware of astrology and how it impacts you specifically, right? I think almost the hardest part is encountering people who are experiencing that chaotic energy, but they don't know why.
Mm.
And so for me, grounding, shielding, and almost a level of energetic protection is my number one piece of advice through eclipse season.
Mm-hmm.
Because you might feel shitty, but at least you know why you feel shitty.
Yeah.
And so if I can protect my shitty little rancid vibe bubble,
mm-hmm.
then I don't have to pull on, I don't have to interact with anybody else's shitty rancid vibe. It's
kind of like when you smell like BO. It's
mm-hmm.
all right, at least it's my BO. But when you smell someone else's BO.
Yes, that is exactly what it's like. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to put your feet on the floor. We're going to start with a grounding. Oh, Molly's still going. She's still laughing. Come on, ground.
My feet are on the floor.
Get to the root. And I was taught to do this using light. But I want you to sit with your feet on the ground, take a few deep breaths, in through the nose, out through the mouth. And I want you to think about what element, earth, air, fire, water, and I'll include energy like light. Just go with your intuition, go with your gut, which one appeals to you the most. You can go with your sun sign. You could go with your rising sign, what element those are tied to, or what element just makes you feel the best, what makes you feel the most grounded, what makes you feel the most secure. And while you really lean into that feeling of security and strength and power, I want you to imagine that element coming up from the ground and surrounding you in a literal bubble. And you're going to infuse that shield, that literal elemental shield, with that strength, with that power, with that security. And state your intention. No unwanted energy can pass through this barrier. I am protected by this energy. I am safe in this shield. Whatever comes to mind, you don't have to use those. That's just what I'll sometimes use. And then let it go. Knowing that it's still there, but you don't have to be, looking at it all the time. And that shield is going to protect your energy, keep it in, and also keep others out. My mom taught that to me when I was probably in like middle school or early high school. I was like a very anxious, stressed out kid. And I had a lot of feelings, as we've talked about on this podcast. Famously, I have a lot of feelings. And my mom taught me that to help manage my anxiety, so I wouldn't take anything else on from my environment. And I find that to be a really, really helpful tool for those who are experiencing any kind of chaotic energy. So this isn't just for like retrogrades or eclipse season. This is like for any time that you're feeling really overwhelmed. Use that same shielding technique. It's my favorite thing ever.
I love that. I just did that along with your guidance and I was like, oh, I feel so much better. And also an analogy came to me. If you struggle to let it go at the end and still feel it there, here's the analogy that came to me while we were doing that. When you're picking the element, it's kind of like when you start a new Pokemon game and you have to choose between like Bulbasaur, Squirtle, or Charmander.
Uh-huh. Why did I know you were going to Pokemon? I don't know how. I just knew it. I felt it in my bones.
You
and I'm
just
so glad I was right.
You just picked based on your gut, which Pokemon you wanted, and they all have different elements. And then when you're in battle, you just take out your Pokeball and you say, Squirtle, go, or whatever. But then, when you're just walking around, you have it in the little Pokeball in your little pack, and it's just, you don't see it, but it's just there. It's just ready to help you.
Perfect. I love that. Which Pokemon would you choose? I always would choose the fire Pokemon, always a Charizard.
Really? I always go with whatever intuition nudges me on. I didn't have a set one. I would just go with like...
You didn't have a favorite?
I didn't know. I'm not going to lie to you. I just went with like... I would seriously... I think this is like the first intuition test I ever gave myself. Is I would literally sit there and be like, which one feels right?
Yeah.
That one.
My intuition just always said fire.
That makes sense.
I'm fighting fire with fire, always.
Yeah. Well, since you guided a shielding practice, I thought, wouldn't it be fun if I guided a cleansing practice? So at the end of your day, you can clear off the rancid vibes of the eclipse and just come back to your own energy.
Yeah, everything that your shield caught during the day, we're going to wash it off together.
Wash it off. You can do this in the shower. You can do this in the bath. You can do this while lying in bed. You could do this wherever you want. Drinking a glass of water is usually my go-to because I'm a dehydrated bitch. But go ahead and close your eyes if you want to. If you're driving, don't close your eyes. But when you do this, feel your feet on the ground or whatever's supporting your feet. And above your head, imagine you had like a great bright light, like a spotlight just shining down into your crown. And ask that any of your energy that you may have left behind, different places with different people throughout your day, ask it to return home to you purified by that light. So it comes in, gets purified by the light, comes down into the crown, starts to fill your body. And as you fill with your energy, feel anyone else's energy, anyone's energy that you may have picked up throughout your day, feel that drop out of your body into the earth through your feet. So it's like any energy that's not yours is being pushed out of you while you fill with your energy. And if you're a visual person, you might imagine this as like two different colors of light, imagining other people's energy as one color, your energy as another. Maybe you notice this as sensation. Does your lower half of your body feel heavier as you release that energy? Does the tension in your shoulders release as you call your energy back? And then take one more deep breath in. And open your mouth to clear out any other clutter. And you can do that for as long as you want. I like to do it when I'm in the bath or in the shower. Good one while you're washing your hair. Or before bed.
Excellent. I loved that.
Love it.
Okay. We have a couple other tips that I think we're just going to rapid fire through because we have yapped at you for long enough, I fear.
Long enough. Let's do it. Let's rapid fire.
My favorite thing to do when I know that something kind of energetically turbulent is coming up is I will pay attention to when I feel really good. And I will make a candle. I'll use like a 7-day or even a 14-day candle. Those are a little bit harder to get your hands on, but they're like beefy.
Mm-hmm.
And I will do all of my ritual work for that turbulent time ahead of time. And so I'll imbue this candle with like all of my best energy, right? Like this is my protected energy, my cleansing energy, kind of like it's like 3-in-1 shampoo.
Yeah.
Is the vibe. You know?
Really hitting the analogies hard this episode.
I know, we're really going for it. Like anything that I will need for this period of time, I am putting it in this candle, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm pulling out the paint pens. I'm writing on the glass. Like we are going full send, like all the witchiness I can muster for this candle.
Mm-hmm.
Because what I really like to do in times like this is I take a break.
Yeah.
Like I'm not doing ritual work in this time. Like if I feel shitty, I'm just letting it go.
Yeah.
What I am doing is I'm lighting that candle.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like I'm doing my spiritual meal prep, you know?
Yeah.
I'm eating
I
my
like
freezer
that.
meals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because there is like some guidance out there that during eclipse season, you may want to reconsider charging your crystals or doing rituals or making moon water. I don't think it's like the worst thing ever. You know, sometimes people make it seem like you're going to die if you do any of those things or they're going to explode or whatever. But really, it's just a matter of like,
you'll never be able to use them again.
Yeah. Really, it's just a matter of like, how do you feel? And do you want to carry that energy with you? Right? Because that's what's happening when you're putting your crystals out under the moon or making moon water is you're harnessing that energy and of that cycle. And so I tend to skip those things too. I focus much more on the mundane. Right? Like cleaning my house, going to bed early, doing things that feel good, and just letting my practice be. I mean, I feel like my practice is like 90% mundane at this point. But it's like I notice right before the eclipse, I tend to drop off a lot of like the habits that make me feel really good. And so I tend to focus on like, okay, how can I fill my cup so that I can go through this process? So it's like, do I need more movement? Do I need more sleep? Do I need more fairy smut? You know, like what do I need to get through this and let that be my magic?
Yeah. I think that is the easiest way to keep spiritual momentum is to like almost detach like the idea of the magic being something separate from life.
Ooh, just like Dorothy realizes in The Wizard of Oz.
It was all very relevant the whole time.
She had the power to go home within her through the entire movie.
Oh, we're good.
I've got chills.
We are so good at podcasting.
I think we need to end it there. I don't think we can go on from there.
Fuck these grounding stones and fuck this idea of grace for yourself and others that I had written down. Fuck it.
Fuck it. Just be like Dorothy. Click your heels together. There's no place like home.
There is no place like home. And home, it's within you, just like the magic is.
It's within you.
And that's
within you.
And that is that on that. We have nothing else.
You're the magic, baby.
You are the magic, baby.
Don't let anything eclipse that.
Yeah. Okay, we love you.
Bye. Thanks for listening to Demystify Magic with Molly and Madison. If you want to learn more about us, you can find all our links in the show notes.
We'd love to know what you think of today's episode, so drop us a review or give us a shout out on social media. And don't forget to let us know your magical moment of the week. Okay, love you. Bye.